All right, David. Well, today we've got on. We're bringing a guest on the show for the first time in a few weeks, and we're bringing on no stranger to the show.
You mean first few months? I don't know when was the last time he was on here.
Well, the last time anyone's been on here is what I was going for. But
Oh, okay.
the last time, yeah, the last time Matt was on, I think was
Dave Grant,
for.
I think was the last guest we actually had on.
I think that's
But we
right.
got a stack of them coming up, so he is batting lead off.
Yes, exciting new season for us. But welcome back to the show, America's Theme Park technologist Matt Miller of Innovated Studios. Matt, how are you today?
Well, I'm doing great, Ellen. With you guys, how are y'all doing today?
It's going great. We're
Absolutely.
having another 70-degree day here in Cincinnati.
Oh,
It sounds like
Yeah.
Orlando. I think we got up to like 85 yesterday, but it's been nice around here. A little hot.
Yes,
it's been already a little hot down here.
The universe is going to correct itself in a couple days. We're expecting snow by the end of the week, so
Of course.
you don't like the
Wow.
weather in Ohio? Just wait a day or two.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get any of that down here. We'll see, but I don't think it's going to make it down here.
Have got it here recently. We wasted money going down there for a trip in January that it was freezing. And to speak of that, we stayed on Disney property and actually located like three. We were looking for them. 3 spots that water pipes were visibly bursted, had bursted, whatever. And walking down the DVC building at Saratoga Springs, there's water pouring out of the light fixtures, and in one of their showcase rooms, their buildings, there's water coming up out of the ground, and outside of one of the buildings we were staying at, there's water shooting out of the transfer area. Yeah, and then you go to Disney Springs, and you have Florida stalactites coming off the fountains. By far the coldest, and our family's been down to Florida quite a bit over the last decade. By far the coldest ever. Is awful. We were at Magic Kingdom, about froze our stuff off.
All right. Well, okay. So speaking of Florida, because let's hop right in.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, and we haven't really talked about this too much on the show, but a couple of weeks ago, we had a new coaster opened here in the Central Florida area. One that I've yet to go to. But Matt, I hear you've been down to Galactic Coaster and know a little bit about this. Tell us about Galactic Coaster.
Yeah, no, had a chance to go down and visit Legoland. Actually, I want to give a shout out to Merlin because not only did I get a chance to go experience the attraction, they actually invited me to come be part of the media event that they had.
Cool.
So it opened up last Friday, and the Thursday evening before that, they had a media event, and I actually got to take my daughter, and we went and rode it several times, and we had a rider cam set up. So it was awesome. If you want to see, my reaction on the coaster, I saw it was on IMDb. It's on a couple of different places. So, you may see a video of me riding this coaster, but with my daughter. But it was so cool. I got to tell you this, and I don't mean this in a bad way. That coaster's too good to be at Legoland. I love Legoland, and like they got some good. But man, this isn't like a step up. I mean, this is like we took the elevator up to the 4th floor. I mean, it is that much better. Theming wise, you walk into now. They opened it up in Orlando, and then a week later they opened it up in California. California is a little bit more like a mini land where they have like a flat ride out front. There's a little bit more space. We're here in Orlando. You have the single attraction with the playground out in front of it. And if you're familiar with Legoland, Florida, it is in the very back of the park, just before you get to the water park. It's basically the last attraction leading up to the water park. But man, great coaster. I know we can dive into it some with the technology, but yeah, I loved it. It's a mini Guardians. Like I thought that, and I saw somebody said that online. That's definitely what it is. But it is a huge win for Legoland.
That's cool. Yeah, I've been hearing the mini Guardians as a phrase to describe this, and that to me that's almost like an oxymoron. Like, because Guardians is like, obviously it's not big in the sense of like, 300 feet tall and a million miles an hour, but it is big in just the scale and like the grandeur of the experience. It's like in that definition, it's like the biggest ride I've ever ridden.
Yeah.
And I hear the immersion level at Galactic Coaster is very similar in that way. So that's super cool. And yeah, I would love to talk about the tech. So it's an art engineering coaster who has just been a really exciting group to watch. With I mean, their new family coaster at Carowinds last year, the Snoopy's Racing Railway, is like so delightful, and it would be just really impossible to ride without a smile on your face. So I'd love to see what they're doing here with a little bit more of a focus on the immersion, a little bit more of a focus on some cooler tech with the rotating
Yeah.
cars and the controlled rotation. Tell us a little bit about that if you don't mind.
So the first thing is when you walk up, it's an all indoor coaster, and
Right.
really the most similar thing that Legoland currently has is the Dragon coasters. That starts indoors, almost dark ride-ish, right, and then
Yeah.
it goes outdoors. Whereas this one is all indoors. And as you're walking up to the spaceport, lots of big thematic props, that sort of thing. The entrance queue, pretty cool when you first walk in. Like I wouldn't say in the first room or so, the first hallway, that like there's anything that you haven't seen in another park. It's just done really well. But when you walk into the very first pre-show room, that's where the story of the coaster is told. And I felt like that was the first time personally I was like, wow, like this is really something. So they have the animatronic of the Lego guy up on the stage, and he looks really good. Now, I did not get to like grill an engineer on exactly how did you do this. So like what's going to happen next is just my own personal, like how it appeared. But one thing that I really liked about it is that the driver, let's call it the pneumatic system, if you will, of this animatronic, it was in 1 foot at the base of the floor, and the other foot was free roaming. So both feet could move, but it was almost like 1 foot was standing on the floor, just barely floating off the floor, and the other could almost kick all the way up. So it really gave this guy the look of like he could jump off the stage, or he could like come out towards you. It was
Yeah.
lots of movement. And the face, I think it was bendable LEDs inside the mask. It did not look like the backlit projector because his eyes went all the way across with a mask, and his mouth. I mean, it's just the way that it lined up. His hands are moving, his head is moving. This is definitely not like, I mentioned the dragon earlier. We've seen a couple of, they've got the dragon and he barely moves his head, right? Maybe a little bit of air comes out of his nostrils, or some of the other effects are more just left to right movement. This is very much like this guy was alive on stage. You know what I'm saying? Like this was high quality, a high quality production. And then above you, what I really appreciated, so there were TV screens around the room, and then above you, not sure if it was LED or projection because it was hard to tell with the theming, but there's a screen that basically takes up almost the entire ceiling. So while they're telling the story of like, hey, this is what you're going to do, and there's separators, and we're trying to destroy the asteroid, all that kind of stuff. Like if there was an explosion, you would see like above you, like the fireball would like go over your head. So it was just really cool how it lined up. From there, you move into a couple of other queue rooms to get you up to the load. Excuse me, before they do the sorting, I should say. And you're given a wristband. I thought that was unique in that it uses RFID technology,
Okay.
and every party is given 2 wristbands. So you'll say,
Okay.
I'm a party of 2, I'm a party of 4, whatever the case is. They'll give you 2 wristbands. Now, you only design one roller coaster, but I was talking to the ride attendant there, and he said, because of the RFID technology, we just want to make sure that we don't miss the coaster design while you're on the attraction. So that's why there's 2. So basically, it's a redundant system
Oh,
for.
cool. Which is great.
So party gets 2. You go up to a kiosk, and you move through like 5 phases of design. So it says, hey, what do you want the body of your ship to look like? What do you want the wings, the tail, boosters? Do you want to add extras, things like that? And that process takes about 3 minutes. And at the end of that 3 minutes, the kiosk lights up and it says, tap your RFID band here. And both guests in the party are able to tap. And then obviously, it associates then the band with the coaster that you have designed. And at that point, what I really appreciate about the RFID is it disappears. Like there's no more tapping. The way that it works from that point is all from a distance scan. So you leave the kiosk, you go to load, there's a ramp, and then you board the ride vehicle. The train is made up of 2 cars that are connected. Each has 4 seats, so 8 people. Excuse me, it's 4 within 4, so then they rotate. But as you sit in with your 4, sit in with the next 4, you leave the load platform. It is a continuous moving platform, so obviously that's
Yeah.
going to help. And then you move into your pre-launch segment, which is where you are placed in front of a large screen and you see the ship that you designed. So they put that on the screen before you launch. And then what I think is really cool and really like, even like Universal's tried this, but nobody's doing a great job of it right now. They put you in your ship on the screen. So your ship like flies on, and there's a live video feed of where you're sitting on the coaster
Mm,
in the ship. And my daughter was waving and and you can see yourself in what you built, which is
wow.
really cool because you think about like Minions, let's say at Universal,
Yep.
great ride, but it's a pre-programmed family. It's not always
Yeah.
Yeah.
Disney. Like it's not new every time. So I thought that was really cool. And then from there, the vehicles face forward, they rotate. Then you launch out about 40 miles an hour. The coaster itself, about a minute, minute and a half. You're going to go through. It's all in the dark. And another cool thing about it, while it's in the dark, there's lots to look at. So there are LED effects, and there are like hanging bricks as you're flying through. And then you will go through a couple of screens. And then on the back side of the building, I'm assuming it's the back side, there is a second launch. And that was the part that really felt the most like Guardians, because you hit the second launch and you go towards a screen near the wall. When the separator happens, that's when it starts to spin, and
Yeah.
then you're kind of spinning through through the Lego galaxy until you come back for landing. And then at the end, you see your ship and yourself again flying through space
Mm.
in the ship that you designed on the screen, and then you pull into unload. So it's a heck of a ride.
That's awesome. Now, are outside of the Lego name itself, are there other I guess not IPs throughout the ride, but are there characters throughout the ride that you interact with also?
So mainly just the characters that are part of the attraction. There wasn't like at least I didn't notice, any other, Legos. There is, so I need to look into this. Maybe this is like some Lego lore. They reference several times a cow that farts, and like when he farts, that's like his rocket ship. They showed him in the commercial. He's very prominent in the attraction. So I just don't know like
Yeah,
does he call back to Lego a long way as well?
that's funny.
But obviously the kids cracked up every time they saw that. So I would
So
say
now,
that was like the
can you
one.
go through somewhere at Legoland and buy this cow?
Oh, great
Is there a
point.
plush
All
cow?
right, Merlin, get on it. Like what are we
Yeah.
waiting on?
I really hope it's the people at Merlin Creative Design that made this cow up while
Yeah.
they were sitting around talking about. They're like, what could we do? What if we have a cow? No, but I think that's cool. And I think, and I don't know what this is like from the tech perspective, but when you see animatronics that are of human beings, it's like the easiest thing in the world is to point out the ways in which they are actually not that much like human beings. Because I don't know, it's like even really good, really, really good human animatronics are just, we spend so much time watching the way humans move, and the way humans move is so organic and so not mechanical in so many ways that it's really difficult to replicate, I think. But I also think that leaves the door open because we're kind of used to seeing a lot of animatronics being people. And because they're people and that's so difficult, a lot of animatronics maybe not being 100% perfect, even though they can be really good and really impressive. A lot of times, I think to me, that means when you make animatronics of non human things, they blow me away. I think about the Radiator Springs Racers animatronics
Oh,
of Lightning McQueen and Mater, and they move perfectly, like literally exactly the same, and they look exactly the same as what they do in the movie. And I think about, I could see a Lego being much the same because it's not quite a human, but it's also definitely a human. But you can understand that it wouldn't move the same way as what you're used to seeing because it's a Lego. So I can imagine, you know not that that actually makes the process of making the animatronic easier, but it might make your audience a little more receptive almost if you're making non-human animatronics compared to trying
yeah.
to
I mean,
make.
that's a great point. Think about it, Disneyland, right? As soon as the Walt animatronic came out, there was all this debate: should we do it or should we not? Then they do it, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, it looks great. Just don't get too close to the stage, or like it only looked good because you zoomed in with whatever the case was. But
Yeah.
to your point, even when you watch the the Lego films, the way that they move in like their mouths, it's almost kind of glitchy because that's like how they operate.
Yeah.
So non-perfect moving animatronic looks identical to what you see in the film. So I think you're spot on. And I just want to, when I talk about glitchy, like, compared to human movement, this guy was so fluid though in the queue. I mean, the way that he turned his head, his hands moving, like I said, almost like a hopping, like, he's like they do in the movie, kind of they jump
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Fantastic,
Cool.
fantastic.
So cool.
But yeah, it was great. Again, Merlin, it was first time that at Innovative Studios, we've been starting to get reached out a lot more by different PR groups or media firms. So again, want to thank Merlin for having us out. Did back to back. We were at Icon Park a couple of nights before that for the new Animal Crossings adventure for Sea Life, and then they had us over at Galactic Coaster. So absolutely incredible, and I think they have a big win on their hands. And I think it's exciting to see that Legoland / Merlin is willing to make these big investments, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, yes, we can do a $90 million investment. Yes, we will do these big attractions. So obviously, when you do something that big, I don't think you can have the expectation that you will see that every year. But I think it could be a great, sign of maybe, every 2 to 3 years, sort of starting to see them on a cycle like the bigger parks. Because this was the first major coaster open at this park, really since the park opened, which I believe
Yeah.
was in 2011, converting it over from Cypress Gardens. So big win.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, is there anything left over that you could recognize that might have been from the Cypress Garden days?
Yes. So
Okay.
for me, two things. One is just the layout of the park. If you're like me, I love the master planning of a park. And, you think about something like a Walt Disney World, with your spoken hub compared to like even, let's say, a Universal Studios Hollywood, or even a Dollywood, right? Where you're in between mountains and cliffs and and maybe there's a couple of dead ends and you're trying to figure out how to move people. To me, that's the biggest thing that still feels like the garden is it is there around the lake, but it is built almost as a half moon. There's not a whole lot of dead areas, but there's definitely spots. Like I was telling my wife when we were walking through, there's a lot of areas where you just could never have a parade because you're walking through a garden or what used to would have been a garden to get to the next area
Yeah.
versus like a Main Street USA. And then the second thing is they have left over a lot of the water attractions, being the water show, the ski show. They still do a version of that, as well as the boat ride. So by the way, you asked me about Galactic Coaster, but one thing that I love about Legoland is you can drive a boat. They call it their Coast Guard attraction there. You can drive a boat, and I'm assuming it is on a trolling motor, like what you go bass fishing with.
Yeah.
But there is no track. Like you're basically out in a pond, and there's like wooden slats. So if you have like 6 boats, let's say side by side, there's not enough space for like an 8th boat. But this thing is free roaming, and you've got a pedal, and you're going, and you're like, you're not supposed to, but maybe you're bumping into other boats, or I might have accidentally spun my wife around, in the boat in front of me. But I love that it's free roaming, free driving out through the water. And
Yeah.
there's employees there, the model citizens. They've got the long cane poles. They can pull you back in if you get turned around. But things like that, I think definitely still call back to the original Cypress Garden days.
That's cool. Now,
Hey, I'm sorry though, real quick. Wow, you know what? I just thought about this. I'm sorry I didn't think about this sooner. Can we talk about something serious real quick? Like this is the platform. I grew up in Panama City, Florida. There was a theme park there called Miracle Strip.
Yeah.
The first wooden roller coaster was the Starliner. All right.
Okay.
Pre-Merlin, Cypress Gardens days, and then I think they called it Adventure Park, something like that. They purchased this roller coaster.
Yeah.
It was like 04, 05. They moved it to what is the present day Legoland.
Yes.
They built this coaster, and I believe it only ran for one season.
Yeah, like 5 months or something. Yeah.
Legoland takes over the park. I believe they feel the coaster is too intense. It comes down, and it's never been seen again. I need to know where this coaster is at. So if anybody is watching this, and your friends at Merlin, or maybe you bought it and it's in your backyard. I am dying to know
I've done
where
that.
the Starliner from Panama City Beach ended up at.
Well, Matt, you're gonna buy it, right? Like, once you find where it is, you're
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah
Like how cool would it be to do a podcast episode sitting
on.
like you could sit with me. Like we could do it together. Yeah. Yeah. The
Absolutely, that sounds
Starliner,
good. Let's
powered
do
by
it.
Innovated Studios. Let's make it happen.
I like that plan. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, see, this is a wonderful question that I think we should ask to all of our podcast guests from now on. David, is if you were gonna buy a roller coaster for sentimental value that you were gonna keep in your backyard, what roller coaster are you buying? And I think that, Matt, that's your answer. I would take.
Yes, yeah. I grew up on that one. That was like my
Right.
first big kid coaster. It's got to be the Starliner.
David, what are you buying? What are you putting in your backyard?
I don't know. It'd have to be something with probably a motion simulator because living in suburbia, I've got a backyard that's basically our back deck. So
Well,
it'd have
you
to be a
can.
motion simulator.
I just bought you 30 acres out in Mara.
Oh, 30
You got
acres.
it now.
Oh my gosh. Wow. You know what? 30 acres might not be enough. I would love to have a replica of Guardians of the Galaxy at my disposal
Oh,
at
you
any
got
time.
30
Or
acres.
Hagrid's.
Those are two good choices. Those are two
Yeah.
expensive choices.
You did say there's a
That's obviously
budget.
not really a part of
You
this.
didn't give me a budget to work with.
Yeah, that's true.
My budget's
I would
probably right
take-
back to motion simulator.
I would take Harley Quinn Crazy Train from Six Flags Great Adventure. I don't really know why I like that coaster so much. It just looks like you look at it and you're like, I could build that. That's my hubris from being 12 and riding that for the first time made me think I could totally build it. So that's what I would put in my backyard.
Well, so Matt, we actually got a number of other things that we got to bring up because we only have you on so often, and you have the unique perspective on a lot of stuff. In Six Flags just being one of them, and as we found out in our green room session before we hit the recording, that you were at the media day for Night Flight Expedition. So, which lane do you want to go in? Which one do we want to dive to first?
Let's do Night Flight first.
Night Flight. All right. So you made it down to, well, I guess for you it's up to Pigeon Forge to go to Dollywood to take this. Now I was going to go to it and I had all cannons aimed towards that, and then I at the last second like, I'm probably going to go down when they open the coaster. It's pretty good down and back for me, so I'll wait until the next one. But you did go. So did you talk about it?
So had a great time. One, want to thank Dollywood for inviting Innovative Studios out. Wes and the PR team there was like, hey, we're doing this. Would you guys like to come and be a part of it? I said, absolutely. So got to go out there. One fun thing for this Florida boy is when I landed the evening before in Knoxville, it was snowing. So I got to see snow, which was cool. It wasn't so much snow that I couldn't drive, the 45 minutes, into Sevierville and to Pigeon Forge, but just enough that it was pretty and that we could make our way down. But one, Dolly was just an incredible park. I know I'm preaching to the choir. Obviously, y'all know that.
Yes.
Holds a special place in my heart because I live in Central Florida. I've lived in Florida my whole life, but my dad, before he met my mom, was actually born and raised in Middle Tennessee, in Murfreesboro. So I've got, grandparents and cousins and aunts and uncles that are in the Nashville, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Lebanon, all that area. So as a very young child, if we weren't at a theme park in Orlando, we were at Dollywood because we would go see the family, then make the couple-hour trip over, east. So love that park, and to get to be there during a media event was incredible. So what they did, just high level, they started us out there in the theater, and the leadership team came out and basically said, hey, we're making some changes to the park this year, with Night Flight being the biggest. One thing, I know you didn't ask me about this, but one thing that just really stood out to me is they are going to start doing after hours events at Dollywood as well. And they're going to be doing some neon nights, which I believe is a product that was already existing at another water park. Don't quote me on this, but I believe it was at one of the other parks that Hershey just recently acquired, and they love that idea. So they want to do a new version somewhat of it there at Dollywood. But what really, really stood out to me is they want to introduce trick-or-treating at Dollywood. And they're going to start it out this fall with just a handful of nights where you'll be able to come in, and they showed a map. basically is the entire park, excluding portions of the country fair. And you're able to go and ride the attractions, little to no wait, and go trick or treating. So that was really cool. And then we got to go into Night Flight. So I know we got a lot of savvy listeners here. So this new Mac rocking boat attraction, we've seen an outdoor version of it overseas, coming to America for the first time, indoors. Been a lot of eyes on this. So I think it's really cool, one, that Dollywood is getting it. And I wouldn't be surprised if that leads to other, parks or variations of this leading on. Kind of like Wild Eagle, right? I think that was 2012 when that opened at
Yeah, that
Dollywood.
was
So
the first one.
right? So they love being first. But what they did for us is they walked us around the building. The show building itself, I would say, is about 90% enclosed and completed. There's just one large section on the front where they're still moving in, if it's for coaster track and, that sort of thing. Been able to get into heavy equipment, but they walked us through the queue. There's about 4-5 little rooms that you'll go through. They were unfinished, but you could tell they were getting really close to being finished. So you could, they had like the low voltage, the junction boxes in the wall, that sort of thing. The walls were completed in terms of the concrete was there, and there were actually large support blocks coming up, which you've got to assume is holding up either some portion of the ride system, probably above there on the queue. But they walked us through, and they had large graphics of what each room would look like, and then they took us up. Basically, you go through the queue, and then you will go up a stairwell. And at the top of the stairwell, you'll make a right, you'll walk about 10 feet, and then it'll take you to the load platform. So much like the coaster that you built in your backyard, it is as well. It starts up off the ground, very similar to something, let's say like a Green Dots, as you're going through. So had the chance to stand there. Now, when you were at the load platform, most of the walls were filled in. You were able to see the track coming into the load platform. You could see the track leading the load. As it leads, it makes a right-hand turn, and they had some scrims that were up there. It appeared that they were probably doing some tests for some media that would be happening there. Like, it was very obvious that the screen there wasn't what would be their opening day, but you could tell they were doing some tests there. And then directly behind the wall, there was a gap that was still open. And you can actually see one of the drops. You could see one of the lifts of the track and just some portions of the track. But really, really cool stuff. Eugene, the president there, incredible guy. And he was just like, ask me anything, and he was talking about the attraction. I'll let you guys get into your questions, but the one thing that did stand out to me is there is actually a second load platform for ADA. And they're going to be able to pull ride vehicles, on and off of the track to give guests time, that need a little bit extra time to get onto it. Eugene actually went and spoke a little about the show system and the control system of how, it knows that whatever number we're going to call out, ride vehicle 17, and that'll go through the track. And when it comes up, how it'll pull 17 out and 18 will go in its place. And then 18 will pause and put 17 back.
Wow.
I just thought that was really neat, but major investment at Dollywood.
Yes.
It's really cool to me that Eugene Naughton knows about that. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that many park presidents, but period. But I don't know if all of them are looking at specific operational parts of specific new attraction, how new attractions operate their ADA operation system. I don't know if everybody's thinking about that all the time. They'll know that it works. They'll know that they have accommodations, but not always specific to it.
I might be mistaken. You might know, Cleve, and Matt maybe might be able to correct me, but doesn't Eugene have an engineering background as well? Or am I thinking somebody else?
I know he came from food and beverage, in his parts of the attraction.
You're right. He started.
That doesn't mean he didn't go to school for engineering or something.
That's right. He started out doing food and beverage at Dominion.
Yes.
I might be thinking. Okay, I might be thinking somebody else. I thought for whatever reason he had an engineering. Maybe that's what he studied, and I'm gonna. I don't know.
It could be also, yeah.
It could also be I don't know what I'm talking about. That's.
We would never say that on a recording. If we weren't recording, we would say that, but we would never say that.
Well, you did say don't quote me on something. Well, we don't have to quote you because we have you recorded saying it. So
that's true. Sorry, I'm not going to tell you. That's true. But and speaking of Eugene, the main draw of this was the new Night Flight Expedition. But as you know, that is in the very, if we will, back of the park, right? Like you're in Wildwood Grove, you get to be there.
Or in the back of the the park than
Yeah,
it
you
is.
have to walk all the way around Big Bear. You're basically to the train track. So in doing that, they then had other stops throughout the park. So they bussed us we took a bus to the new attraction. We got out there, spent most of the time there talking about the new attraction, but then we walked basically from there to the front of the park. So we made our way through Wildwood Grove, went by the Mystery Mine, came down, the hill that takes you to the front gates, and then we had lunch at Granny's. And we made stops along the way of, hey, this is an upgrade, this is a change. And, going back to Eugene, one of the things I really love about Eugene, he is probably one of the most approachable park president that I have ever met. And not just from like a friendly face, he's willing to talk about things. Now, he doesn't give companies secrets, right? Like there's times where he'll be like,
Right.
hey, somebody asks, can you tell us exactly, what Herschel invested on this? Or there were some like very detailed, he's like, well, we're a family company. He did a great job of like staying presidential and not giving away the company secrets. But you can tell not only does he really know, he loves the product. And that comes through when you ask a question. So like when we left the attraction, let's say there were 30, 40 people part of this event. He was making his way through the different groups. Hey, how you doing? What questions do you have for me? And people were firing them off. And as much as you have a PR rep from the park, in this case Dollywood, that is there to make sure the executive leadership like doesn't say something they shouldn't say, or that the news isn't like grilling them and trying to put them in a catch question. Just the way that it flows off of his tongue, you can tell it's not pre-prepared. Like he knows it and he loves it. So you're right. There's not a lot of park presidents that I think would talk about that. And even if they knew it, I think a lot of them would feel so insecure of, gosh, like what if the person I'm talking to is an engineer and I say it wrong? So I think Eugene trusts his team. And real quick, another thing that he mentioned, and we can dive into this. He spent a lot of time talking about when nobody else has done this, like how do you test and adjust? How do you say, well, we know for sure it's going to take a month to do test and adjust because there's so many elements in this that they haven't done before. With the caveat, the ride's still going to be safe, right? They're not gonna open up too soon. But there were some questions of like, can you talk us through exactly that process? And Eugene was very open, and he said, listen, we've got major milestones, and we know the order that we're going to go in. But it would be foolish of me to say, the coaster is going to take 2 weeks, and the water is going to take 2 weeks because we just have to see all of those elements together. What is that like? We've done separate, Daredevil Falls, Big Bear. We've done a coaster, we've done a water attraction, but to bring them all together, that's going to be a symphony that not only Dollywood, nobody else has really done before. So they're going to have to be a learning curve on that.
Mm-hmm.
I just love new ride systems so much. It's like the most. There's literally nothing in the world that's more exciting than a new model coming. Like it's like, yes, but I will have to ask. When we had Eugene Naughton on our show back in the fall, we talked about Night Flight, and a big part, and this was also just awesome to continue the high praise for Eugene Naughton. One of the things he was clearly like visibly excited about with the addition of Night Flight was what he called the ability to invite more guests over. Invite more people over for dinner is what he said. Because Dollywood's a really popular place, and with the addition of a new ride, obviously there's operational challenges there, but there's also in the macro scale, there's operational ease that comes with having a whole extra capacity machine, a whole extra attraction with a bunch of spots per hour to get people through. From what you could tell, does it look like this is going to be a really high capacity attraction? Does it look like it has the infrastructure for that to be the case? Because I just think with roller coasters, you're always thinking, okay, that's about as high capacity as you can get. But sometimes water rides can be a little trickier if they're having smaller facilities, if it just takes longer to load and unload people because they're wet and they want to laugh about that and so forth. So what did that look like?
Yeah, great question. And he led into that. I actually had a chance to sit down with him one-on-one to talk this very thing. So we can talk about this, and if we got a moment, maybe we should talk about year-round operations as well, because I think that ties into it. So first of all, high capacity attraction. He led with this should have similar capacity to current day Big Bear. He said they're aiming for roughly 1,200 an hour, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Now first couple of months, right? There's going to be learning curves, but he said, to your point, sometimes people look at a water attraction as a less capable or maybe not quite as high volume. And the way that I came away from it was, while this has water features, this is really a roller coaster
Yeah.
that has different elements, right?
Yeah.
So, when people ask me, like before I walked it, I keep saying it's a Gringotts that has water. Like, that's the best way that I can sort of in my mind put it together, because it looks like you're going to have elements where the track breaks apart or something like that. There's going to be drops, turntables, whatever the case is. But yeah, so they're treating this as their 11th coaster, which I think rightfully so, and very high capacity, at least comparative to the others there. So I think that will help. I think placement in the park helps as well. Just like we talk about, Disney in the grocery store, right? You put the milk in the back, so everybody will go, to the Magic Kingdom or go get the milk. It is next to Big Bear, which are two high capacity attractions, but they are in locations that are almost the furthest back, right? I mean, you think about like Tennessee Tornado, you got the train in the front right, but on that side, it's one of the furthest back. So I think it will help pull people back even more to Wildwood Grove. One of the first things that I heard about Wildwood Grove when it first opened, so even pre Big Bear, it's another children's section, right? And it's like, okay, well, we've got the country fair, and
Yeah.
there's some kids rides there. We've got the Wildwood Grove, there's some kids rides there. We do have the inverted coaster, so it's a little bit higher. But I think this will be the place. Okay, like there's even Big Bear's a step up, and then now we've got this coaster as a step up. I mean, just a major land section, if you will, in that area of the park.
Yeah.
Now, when you enter the park, though, when you come to the theater, you can turn left and take a back way up to that area, so you don't have to walk all the way around. But
You're right. Yeah, like heading back towards
it's there, though. Question: now they're treating this as their 11th roller coaster. Now, if you go over in the thing over to the roller coaster database, no mention of it. Is there a reason for that? Not even as under construction.
So I have a thought, and then this guy probably does as well. So I will share mine, and then he can tell me why he agrees or disagrees, and we can still
All right,
be friends.
here we go.
But
Here's the debate.
if I hang up real quick, it's because I'm mad at him right now.
Okay.
All right. So this is my thought. I am of the opinion that if there is a larger section that you actually roll and coast on,
Yeah.
it should be considered a roller coaster. You do not have to roll and coast the entire length of the track.
Agreed.
Now, caveats. I do not consider like Pirates of the Caribbean to be a roller coaster because I'm in a boat. Sure, there is a drop. Most water attractions, there is a section, I'm using terms here, section of roller coaster track that is used as the drop, right? We come out of the log, out of the water, we go down the track, we go back into the water. There's water sprayed on it, so it looks like we're on water the whole time, but as we know, it's a track to keep us safe coming down. I think there will continue to be debates on this of, is it truly a roller coaster? Now, on playing devil's advocate, the one reason I can see why somebody would say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not sure. This is a powered coaster, right?
Yeah.
So with the linear induction, as you're moving through there, the pushing and pulling of that. But just like I still consider not Fire Chaser Express, oh my gosh, Blazing Fury, Fire in the Hole, very much a driver for the dark ride portion, right? And then when you get to the top, then you got the coaster portion from there. So I think that the reason why there's debates of this, it is that you are being driven through most of the track. But I would love the counter argument.
Well, let me add this to it before you go on, Cleet, because if you go onto the roller coaster database and you search up SeaWorld Orlando, the what's it called, Journey to Atlantis, that is considered a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Now I would okay. Now I'll open that floor. I'll pull the pin out and toss the grenade in and let you go.
All right. I've thought I've thought a lot about what is the definition of a roller coaster, and really gotten really philosophical about it, and thought about Ludwig Wittgenstein's family resemblances, and how I think that's the best we can do with the definition of a roller coaster. But I would say if the rolling coasting definition is good, it has to be powered by just gravity or momentum for at least one length of the ride vehicle, is usually what I say. Now, with water rides, a lot of times, even in the sections where they're using roller coaster track, it's not powered by just gravity or the ride vehicle, because even if it's really, really not affecting the movement of the ride, there's water running there too. So if
Great
you
point.
think about like the Intamin spill water models, like Congo Falls at Kings Island, or any of those kind of 4 across boat rides, usually those go up a lift hill and then they have a turnaround that is mostly a roller coaster section. But one, that's not really the point of the ride, is that turnaround. But
Yeah.
two, there's water running there. And I don't think the water really has any impact on the way that that's moving, but it does. It does have some impact, and therefore it's not a roller coaster. So I think for Night Flight, I'm going to need to ride it, because I'm going to need to see if there's a specific section where it's like Dudley Do Right's Ripsaw Falls has a part in the indoor section where once again, we can go back to the year-round operation. In their winter mode of that ride, there's no water running down that drop, and then it goes up, and then you splash. So to me, if you ride it in winter mode, that's a roller coaster. But in the summer mode of the roller coaster, there's water running down, and it's like so that you splash a little at the bottom and you get wet, whatever. But that, not a roller coaster, because it's not ever powered by just gravity or momentum. So that's what I don't know about Night Flight yet. We'll have to wait and see. But I am not above. If I think it's a roller coaster, I will let somebody from RCDB know.
I love it. I love it. And I'm with you. Same thing, we'll have to see as we go from the load and I don't want to overspeak here, but from the load platform, it did appear as if there will be some portion, almost like, maybe not quite like Guardians, more like let's say Moment Universal, to where you're in the dark, the track is black, and there are a couple of drops with a turn, that sort of thing. Now, standing at the platform and trying to look between unfinished walls, right? Like, is that one continuous section? Is it multiple sections that just appeared to the eye? But I agree with you. And I got to tell you too, though, you mentioned Stewart Orlando. I don't have a problem with, Clayton's recommendation there of the distance of a ride vehicle. I don't have a problem with Journey to Atlantis being on that list in Orlando, especially because that second back, that back half of that ride is as much of a roller coaster as anything else. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
It is, but it's decisively like a log flume for. It's a log flume and like I don't know what it's called, but the Small World boat ride.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different elements in there.
Yeah, it starts like just a dark ride boat ride. Okay, I do want to go back to one more thing that you mentioned from Dollywood. So their Neon Nights events that they're debuting this year. So we did a series, if you remember, you were on, in fact, about Halloween events, and one of the things we were noticing when we would ask people about, like, how do you decide whether you want to try to make your event a hard ticketed event, or make it, just a part of regular operation, or include it with your annual pass, or whatever it might be. One of the things that we got a lot from people was, well, a hard ticket event is great because you're going to make good money if you have a successful hard ticket event. That's awesome. But in order to actually provide enough value to charge people for it, it has to be of a certain length. And in order to be of that certain length at the end of a full operational day, you have to have staffing that a lot of people just have trouble finding unless you're in an Orlando or you're in a New York City or something like that. And thus, obviously, I got to wonder a little bit. Dollywood, known as being a great company that treats their employees very well, but nonetheless, it is absolutely shocking and super impressive to me that they feel like they are able to staff this event at the end of a full operational day. So shout out to whatever they're doing there. But how do you think, I guess, of course, hours and things like this are all super nebulous at this point, but do you think that could be a challenge they run into with this?
So I'll tell you, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, I think I would have had a different answer than what I'm going to give today. I did not realize how in the weeds, how much partnered together. Dollywood basically, and I don't want to take away anything from anybody else, they basically have their own version of the Smoky Mountains Disney College program.
Yeah.
And I did not know that. Like, when we were there, we went by and I thought they were building a new hotel. And they're like, oh, this is the housing for the international students. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, light bulbs started going off. So my guess is that is playing a huge role into this. You've got them basically on site, like, across the road. And, I don't know really of anybody. I'm sure it's out there, but I wasn't in the program, but I have studied, friends with, partnered with, Disney College Program, been around them a long time. And so that obviously enables them to do a lot of things that other parks can't.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I was like, well, gosh, like, yeah, like you really could replicate that to a regional park or to another area. So my guess is that is what's really helping them be able to do that. But no, I mean, I think it's going to be a challenge. They're obviously super excited. One thing that I really appreciate about Dollywood is they even said in the event, I believe it's 3 Friday nights that they're doing this. It's just a handful of nights. That's it. Like this is not a every Tuesday and Thursday, through November or excuse me, through October. But they said it with a lot of we think it's going to work. Like people are asking us for it. Like we're very excited. So I was under the impression of like they didn't announce anything, for 2027, nothing like that. But it really felt like they had a lot of momentum going into 26. They're expecting it to sell out quickly, and just other things I'll throw in there that they used as reference or that I've just noticed on myself. You might have seen Allegiant just partnered together for a 9 to 5, like Dolly Parton song,
Yep.
and flights sold out, so they've actually have introduced a second flight
Yep.
that is going. And then they told us there, Eugene is an avid runner. He's telling us he's done a marathon in every state, which I think
That's
he might have
right.
said that on the podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so they've introduced races at Dollywood,
Yep.
and it's became so popular that they petitioned the city, and they're now going to let them do it twice a year, spring and in the fall.
Good.
And I'm not sure if they've announced either they've announced it and they haven't went on sale yet, or they're about to announce soon. So maybe breaking news here, but they were saying that approval had just went through the city because the demand was so high, and they were sharing that with the media. So it'll be interesting. And I think another thing too, the Smokies are just so different in that, you've got this gorgeous national park that just
Mhm.
brings millions of people, and you're able to siphon's a bad word, but even if somebody wasn't coming to the area just for Dollywood, they're there because of the national park, and then they can stay for Dollywood or vice versa. They're for Dollywood, the national park. So I think that influx makes it a little bit easier in terms of ramping up, for staffing, putting money behind this versus, I don't know, let's say like a Herschend Wild Adventures, right, in Valdosta, Georgia. Maybe they start doing more after nights at some point. By the way, they didn't say this in the media. I'm just throwing it out there. But, Valdosta maybe doesn't quite have the national draw
Sure.
as the Smoky Mountain National Park.
Yeah.
I would
Well,
say we
okay.
should go there for the cinnamon bread, to be honest.
Oh, hey, by the way, listen, I'm not a kind of guy to brag, but I got to tell you, at the end of the event, they gave us a blueprint of like the ride vehicle. And then he was like, surprise, we've had the cinnamon bread station running all morning. And they sent us home with bags of cinnamon bread. So, David, I hate
Nice.
to make you feel even worse for not
So
attending.
jealous.
Yeah. But, when I was eating it, I was thinking about you guys. I want you to know. Y'all were top
Thank
of
you, man.
mind.
Thank you. I was tasting cinnamon bread in my mouth the other day, and I was like, "What is that? How did that happen?" It must have been because
Yeah,
you were.
top of mind. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we got to at least. We've been on here for way longer than we thought, and we have not yet talked about Enchanted Parks. So we got to at least
Yes.
brush over this.
Gotta brush that.
So Enchanted Parks. We talked about it a lot last week on our episode, and we talked about some of our thoughts about the parks that happen to be sold and how those are some of the parks that have cool community involvement and cool legacy, and they're kind of older parks and they're kind of smaller parks, of course, and they're kind of parks that haven't seen the most investment from Six Flags or Cedar
Mhm.
Fair in the last years. All of them. Like the last new coaster that any of those parks got was Zambezi Zinger, the GCI at Worlds of Fun, or no, that's not what that's called. Yeah, it is Zambezi
Yeah.
Zinger, the one with the spiral lift hill. I think so.
I think right.
I think
We're gonna go with yes. But before that, it had been a while, and so we looked at some of those things, and we talked about how I personally feel the fact that this is coming from. I mean, Premier Parks is of course a chain already in the industry, and this is the same parent company. We'll have both Premier Parks and Enchanted Parks, but nonetheless, this is kind of new money to the industry. The money that was used to purchase this, to make this divestment from Six Flags. And I think that is like the best thing about this, because I think it's like if it was SeaWorld or if this was Hershend even, I'd start to get a little worried that like it's kind of the same money, you know. But this
Yeah.
is not that. This is new circulation. This is like direct investment in many ways, and to me, that is super super exciting for our industry, because it means good things for obviously the Six Flags chain,
Mhm.
to be able to take a little bit of a load off their back, but also it means good things for maybe some vendors and some manufacturers who are now going to get some work doing maybe some new projects on some of these Enchanted parks, or doing some work for the Six Flags chain that they're going to be doing with some of this money that they've just got from this sale. So I'm very excited about this. Matt, tell us a little bit about what you're thinking about the whole thing.
So I agree. For EPR to come in and make this purchase, or in this investment, if you will, I think that's really exciting. So EPR is something that I've actually had an eye on for quite some time. For those of you that maybe know or don't, they're a real estate investment trust,
Mhm.
and basically they go through and obviously they purchase up real estate, right? Or they make these big investments. And EPR specifically, they focus on more of the attractions, more
Yeah.
of the disposable income, right? Obviously, before this, there were some theme parks, but we've seen a lot more ski lodges, like AMC theater type things, even some gaming.
Yeah.
And then now to see them investing even more into the parks. I really like what you said as well about like, what does this mean for, where they took it away from the parent company? If you're struggling previously, or, you're saying, hey, we're not struggling as much, but we can see the end in sight, sell this off. We're able to breathe a little bit. I think then these parks, like if you were already struggling before you sold them off, you probably weren't going to be able to invest heavily anyways, because you were just trying to pay the rent, right? Like you didn't want to lose the place. So for a parent company to say, hey, listen, Fearless Parks, now we can invest heavily in what we own after the sell off, versus EPR is able to come in and say, listen, we now have a new portfolio of parks. We can start to invest heavily in those when they weren't going to be able. So I love what you said. A lot of these third party, different manufacturers, studios, groups that help build these attractions. As you know, there's a lot of companies that do a lot of things in theme parks. Shoot, at Innovative Studios, we love doing work in theme parks, and we're doing some right now. So I think that we will see more of that for parks that maybe had been, I don't want to say left behind, but not as invested in as heavily recently.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how they develop this out, because Clayton and I were talking before you came on that Michigan's Adventure. Cedar Fair did very well taking care of their parks from, I think, an operational standpoint during the last, for a while. And however, if you look at investment as far as these parks that they've divested from the Six Flags chain, Michigan's Adventure, for instance, the last new roller coaster installation they had was 2008, and it was a relocation from Geauga Lake. So it's been a long time since Michigan's Adventure had any kind of significant new roller coaster at all. And as a matter of fact, before 2008, I don't remember what their new ground up one was. So this is an opportunity for some of those parks to get something brand new coming in. It may be a relocation to get started, but to get some more investment, to get the different people coming in. I believe I saw also that Six Flags St. Louis, they're eyeballing that to be their flagship. Did I read that wrong?
That sounds correct. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
And I don't know if
that's
they
kind of
invest with
the biggest of the parks that were included in
okay.
the transaction. So
So what you come from the design standpoint from Innovate with Innovated. What sort of persona do you take that do you think these parks are going to take on? Because every park chain's got their own personality that comes out in the parks. Now this is not a conglomerate, but 7 parks that have varied backgrounds. They're going to be coming together under one umbrella. What do you think from a design standpoint? Are they going to try to bring in an IP? Are they going to develop their own IP? We talked about IPs earlier with uh, Legoland. I've always thought, now I don't know if anybody in the Kings Island sphere is listening, but with Sally Darkride doing the Phantoms Theater refurb, not the refurb, I guess it's a good ground up
yeah.
action attraction, but the different characters that are in that could be Kings Island's own IP that they can make these plush things either to win at a game or whatever. Do you think that the Enchanted Parks will develop their own characters, their own IPs, or what's going to be the personality they try to develop?
So I think obviously once you first do a big investment like this, you're like, where do we put the cash next, right? Like we've got to get a return on investment.
Yeah.
So is it an immediate investment in IP? Not sure, what is that going to look like? But I can tell you this, IP is the name of the game. I mean, it's just, you're either going to build your own, you're going to buy somebody else's, or you're going to wish you had it, right? Like you're going to fall in one of those three categories. Now, I think these smaller parks, sometimes they look at, well, gosh, I'm a regional park. I don't have my Mickey Mouse. I don't have, my Harry Potter, whatever the case is. And then we've seen them go out, and, is it Bugs Bunny that they try to license, or is it Veggie Tales? And, we've seen different, variations of this. If I ran the park, I would love to try to do both. I think that immediately, if you could get some noticeable IPs in, maybe you could sign just an early deal of, hey, X IP, we're going to put it across the park for the next 4 to 5 years, just to start to get more brand recognition as well with this new Enchanted Parks. What is Enchanted Parks? Is it his own park? Like, what do you mean it owns all these parks? What do you mean this isn't a Six Flags or a whatever park anymore? So I think there needs to be some of that. But if they would take the time and spend the capital, I do not think you could go wrong with investing in your own IP. It's a long road, right? You're not going to have your first major hit in the first couple of years. But if you could start to build that internally and then work towards it, personally, I just feel like that's the holy grail of theme parks is your own IP. I mean, shoot, look at Disney. They, like Marvel, they went out and bought that, right? They didn't invent that. They bought some IPs, brought them in-house. And then, I don't want to speak for, Comcast, but I'm sure they would love if this Warner Brothers deal would have, went in a certain way, or they're able to bring in, Harry Potter, or whatever the case is. So I think that if you can own the IP and pay as little as possible rent/royalties to somebody else, you're putting yourself up for success long term.
Yeah.
You bring in a company like Sally Darkride, which is designing the Phantom Theater. What's the last part? Phantom Theater
Encore. Phantom Theater Encore.
Not that was a show.
Oh, you're right. It's called
Opening Nightmare.
Opening Night Nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would think that this logical next step on that is Kings Island's got their built-in IP now, and you can start making reoccurring income and return on investment from doing this dark ride. Now you have, I think there's like 5 main characters that are in that ride. Begin selling those, and that becomes Kings Island's IP, and then that sets Kings Island apart from the other parks in the chain. And in the Six Flags area, they have the DC Comics, and the Legacy Cedar Fair parks have the Peanuts. So it would make logical sense that you can make a dark ride is less expensive to erect than a large roller coaster. So you could get the IP for less than it would be to do a roller coaster, and then make income coming off of the that investment that you have with the ride. It'd be hard to do a plush off of a roller coaster.
Yeah. I think the tricky part is just balancing, like, you want IP because you want people to be interested. You want like merchandising and licensing and all of those things. But a big part of wanting IP is just wanting to get people inside the doors of your parks. And the building your own IP is great, and it's difficult, of course, but it's really difficult to get it to be the thing that's bringing people inside your park. Like, if people are already at your park and then they're seeing these IPs and they're like, oh, that's cool, I actually really like this. Like Mr. DNA. Like I would buy a Mr. DNA hat because I love Mr. DNA. I would never go to Universal thinking about like, oh, I want to go to that park because they have Mr. DNA. That's just, that doesn't really work like that. So I don't know. I do think you guys are definitely right. And I think certainly building your own IPs is incredible, but I don't know if you're, especially for these regional parks, I don't know if it can get people in the door the same way as like buying Shaun the Sheep would, or something like that. But
yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's other extra income off of a ride that you have there, because thinking that you can't go around to the park at I'm just going to use Kings Island as an example because this is my backyard. Right now, you don't really go into the gift shop and buy anything for Phantom Theater.
That is true. Yeah,
you could develop a whole income stream off of that. And I'm just wondering, because Dollywood is built around Dolly Parton, and in the Herschend chain, they're the only park that's built around that. So I mean, they've done very well. They live off that name, and everything the market is Dolly Parton, and rightly so. It has worked very well for them. And I would ask, your opinion, Matt. When people go to Disney now, do they go because of Mickey and Minnie Mouse, or do they go because it's Disney? And do kids go down there and they get introduced to Mickey and Minnie for the first time there? Because unless you have Disney Channel, do you even get the Disney character cartoons anymore?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's funny you said that about Dollywood. I actually had this conversation at dinner with somebody at the old meal when I was there for the media event. Not somebody at Dollywood, just a friend of mine. And I hope Dolly lives to be 500 years old. You know what I'm saying? But at some
They
point,
probably do too.
we're all, none of us have beat Father Time before. And the question that this individual proposed, like, what do you think happens to a Dollywood if and when, hundreds of years from now, Dolly is no longer with us? And I said, well, to me, it turns into a lot of like what they've done at Disney, to where, to your point, my meet and greet is with Mickey Mouse, right? Like, we were making fun of the animatronic of Walt earlier, but he's more of like this, like, ghost, if you will, that's kind of around the corner, right? Like, he's touched everything, and you kind of like feel like his story is there, but you're not there because of Walt Disney. You're there because of the legacy that Walt Disney built and what they've built on top of that legacy.
Yeah.
And I said, I really feel like that's what you do at Dollywood, which they've already really have been doing, right? Like, and in some of these cues, you'll see like her butterfly, or like quotes from her and things like that. I hope they do that till the end of time. And like you were saying, do you go because of Mickey Mouse? I think unless you're a 2-year-old that's been watching, Disney Channel at daycare all day, you're right. It's more about I'm meeting Mickey and Minnie when I'm at the park. But I do think that once I've met them and I've had that connection, now every time I go to the mall in Cleveland and I see a Mickey shirt, it reminds me of that trip. Or, when I stay at the Disney Vero Beach, or I go on a Disney cruise line, those are all the points to where I'm going back and thinking about that park. I really like what Cleet said in terms of, yes, if I'm building my own IP, the first 5 years, nobody is going to come to the park because of that, right? They want to see the supervillain that was in the movie or whatever it was that was recently out. They want to interact with that. However, when you are building out that brand, if EPR in a few years decides they want to sell Enchanted to another REIT company, that internal IP is going to bring so much more value.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think both of you are right. I think that building it out is a long, tough road, and it is not what brings people into the park today. I do think that if you're able to do it, you could boost merchandise, and it keeps people top of mind of your parks while they're not there. My last closing thought is that for Enchanted Parks, I'm so excited for it. I think it's incredible. I think we're going to see a lot of new investments into these parks. I am interested to see how the identity changes or conforms between all of these, because you said you've got a bunch of legacy parks that are known kind of their own thing. Personally, I think if Enchanted Parks is smart, they won't go in and say, hey, your legacy for 50 years has been this, and tomorrow it has to be this. If I ran the park, I would sit down and say, okay, who am I working with? What are they known for? And how can I blend that across all the parks? Again, going back to Herschend, Silver Dollar City, Dollywood, Wild Adventures, all very different parks, but they work great within the same family. While I'm at Wild Adventures, I'm probably not thinking about Dolly Parton, but that doesn't mean that the same parent company can't own them.
Yeah.
And you bring them together does a good thing.
Well, Matt, I got a yes or no question, and we've been going for a while, so we won't get into it. But we'll set this up for our follow up interview, couple months down the road. So when it comes to divesting parks from the Six Flags chain, 7 have been sold off. Is Six Flags done, or is there more to come? Yes or no? With no follow up. We just don't have time for a lengthy follow up.
My answer is yes, there is more to come, but I can't tell you how deep without looking at a P&L sheet. I would love to be able to sit in the room to see,
I'll have those next time.
Right? Like, really, how bad is the debt? Really, what are we able to do with this cash? I think it's just like all of us, right? If you've ran up a bunch of credit card debt, when you pay it off, you're feeling great. But if you don't stop the things that caused you to run up that credit card debt, 6 months from now, you're going to be in credit card debt again. So I think it's more of, are we able to save the ship where we are today? And can we right the ship and whatever decisions, philosophies we had that caused us to get in that situation, can we not do that anymore so we don't need to sell off any other parks?
Yeah. Okay, I agree, and I also agree that like we should get. I want to see all 4 financial statements. Bring them in for every park, and I'll just like sit in my room like a cave for like three weeks, and just I'll walk out, and you'll be like, you can ask me anything. I'll know every single line of every single statement of every single park. It'll be amazing. So, yeah, if anybody wants to send those in, we'll put an email down in the description.
We'll start joining the Wall Street calls together. Maybe that could be a podcast episode. We just dial in. Actually, don't do that. I don't know if that's legal or not, so don't break the law.
I don't know
but,
if it's
well, that's legal. Just join the podcast call as, like one of the investors where you dial in and we'll see what happens. Yeah.
I'm invested in. That's fine. All right. Good. Well, Matt, seriously, I don't think we've ever had a 71-minute just interview section before. So, you're too interesting. We gotta cut you off. I'm so sorry.
You guys are too kind. Thank you for having me, and happy Mario Day, by the way. And I hope that everybody has a wonderful day. So, that'll be good, guys. See you later.